Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson to Beyond Solitaire. Welcome back to my Cuba Libre tutorial series. This is the first video in my What Did the Different Factions Do series, so I'm going to do one for each faction. This video is going to cover the government, but I will be doing separate videos for the Syndicate, the Directorio, and the 26th of July, and I'm going to try to get them all out relatively quickly so you can check out your faction and see what you can do. There are some operations that are common to the insurgent factions, but I'm literally just doing a separate video for everybody because that's what I personally would want. So I'm going to try to teach this in terms of what actions can you do and why would you do them, and then we'll get down to how. Because I think that one of the things that can be confusing about coin is that no one thing that you're trying to do is that difficult. It's more trying to figure out why you want to do something and maybe in what order you want to set yourself up for maximum effect of your different operations. So we're going to talk through the government's operations first. And their operations are called coin operations because that stands for counterinsurgency. So everybody else is an insurgent. The government right now is the one who is trying to counter all of the insurgencies. So this is Batista's government. Batista had a lot of ties to the United States. So when he ended up being tyrannical and putting a lot of people in jail, he still got propped up for a long time. Then, of course, we have the 26th of July, which is Fidel Castro's movement rising to try to overturn him. And then, he just basically becomes the new totalitarian government. But we're not going to go there in this particular video. But the government is currently top dog, and they are trying to stay that way. I also want to take a moment here to recap what the government's goals are, since that will help you understand why you're doing the actions you're doing. So again, the government's goal is to get to greater than 18 support. We're at 16 for starters, and then you also want to get all cities at active support. So we've got a start here, but we have work to do in Camagüey and Santiago de Cuba. So everything that you do in the game should have an eye to either getting your goals met or stopping somebody else from achieving theirs before you can finish yours off. And there are a few things that they're able to do to that end. So the first coin operation I want to talk about is called train, as in training more forces. So why would you do it? You do it to get more of your forces out on the board. So here are your available forces. We want to get them out here and in action. And this operation can also generate support. So if you want more dudes on the map and you want to generate more support, then you might think about doing a training operation. Where can you do it? Technically, you can train in any provinces or cities. So there's no limitation on where you're able to do it, except that it's a little bit more complicated than that. And we're going to talk about it when we get to the details. Then the question is, how much does it cost? It costs a different amount depending on your relationship with the United States. Right now, we have a U.S. alliance that's good, so it's going to cost 2. So basically, you would pay 2 resources per location where you're taking the action. So if you're taking the action in multiple locations and it's a full operation, then you would pay 2 per. If you're taking a limited operation in one space, then you just pay 2 and do it in that one place on the map. But training is interesting because you're also a little bit limited because how powerful this action is dependent on how many bases you have out. So when you take a train operation, if you are selecting cities and provinces with bases, you can do any of those. Let's say that we have a base here and we have a base here, which of course you don't start the game that way, but let's say that we're very industrious and we built them. When you take a training full operation, in each selected city and province with a base, you can place up to 4 cubes of any combo of troops and police in that area. So if I have a base in Las Villas and a base in Camagüey, and I decide that these are 2 of the places where I'm going to take a training action, then I can just put 4 cubes out here as long as I paid for them. The pawns, by the way, are there specifically to mark when you have been taking actions in multiple locations and you want to track that you did everything. They're not game pieces in the sense that they do anything. They're markers to show where you've planned to take an action so you can make sure you actually do it, especially if you're paying those resources for it. But in all the spaces with a base that you've selected, you can put out 4 cubes. However, If there are no bases out, you're a little bit more limited. Because then the rule says, then in up to one selected space, you can either replace 2 cubes with 1 base. So I could take 2 of these cubes out and put a base out if I was doing that action in Havana. Or if the space has police, troops, and control, you can buy something called a civic action. So for example, here we have troops, we have police, we have control. We could do a civic action to boost our support here from passive to active. So a civic action lets you spend resources essentially to make people happy. Every 4 resources you spend in a place where you're taking a civic action either removes a terror marker if somebody has been doing terrorism there, or if there are no terror markers present, it shifts public opinion 1 level towards active support. So training is a great action, but it's a better action when you have bases out. Until you have more bases out, you can really only do things in 1 space because it'll allow you to pick 1 place and replace 2 cubes with 1 base, which I highly recommend you do as quickly as possible. Or it lets you buy civic actions. So training is great, but it does have its limitations. Make sure that you remember what they are. The next type of operation you can take is called Garrison. So why would you take a Garrison action? Well, you might notice that our pieces are concentrated in these cities, especially where we have a lot of control. But you might need to send your garrisons to other places, especially if cities become contested, or if you're trying to protect these economic centers that are going to make you some money in the propaganda round, as long as you don't let anything happen to them. So Garrison allows you to move your forces among cities and economic centers, and then you're going to try to find and eliminate guerrillas that are placed there. So where can you do a Garrison action? Well, where you do it is dependent on the destination and not where your troops start. So if I want a garrison here, 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 and here, I would have the option to do that in a full operation as long as I'm willing to pay. But that's actually a good deal right now because I'm going to pay 2. It would be 3 or 4 depending on our relationship with the United States. But I only have to pay the resource cost 1 time to garrison in multiple places. So if I wanted to garrison maybe in this economic center and in Santiago de Cuba, maybe to expose this guerrilla, then I would pay the cost 1 time for both areas for a total of 2 resources. So once I've paid the resource cost, I could move any cubes on the map to any cities or any economic centers that I picked. And then in each economic center, so this is where you're really trying to defend your money. Let's say that there is a guerrilla here, and I want to move a couple of cubes into this area. And then I'm able in each economic center to activate 1 guerrilla for each cube present. So there's only 1 here. If there were 2, I could activate up to 2. But now this Directorio guerrilla is exposed. Ruh-roh. And if desired, I can make a free assault in 1 economic center. So basically I can move into an economic center with a garrison action, expose any guerrillas who are there, and then assault them for free. So if I want to clean out a bunch of guerrillas who are in my economic zones costing me money, that's something I'm going to want to do. So we've been talking about operations versus limited operations. In this case, if you are performing a garrison action as a limited operation, what that means is that you can still move as many cubes as you want, but you have to choose and pay for 1 destination only. So you pick the EC or the city that you want to move people to. And if you're going to perform the assault, you have to perform it in that destination that you picked. So basically there's just a limit on where you can send cubes and where you can perform that assault that's part of the garrison action. The third operation that you can perform as the government is called sweep. And a sweep is done because you want to enter various locations on the map. You want to reveal enemy units because remember, these are all these underground guerrillas. You need to figure out where they are and get them. And the sweep is also going to help you gain control of various areas. So if you want to clear out pieces and control stuff, then you're going to want to sweep. So where can you sweep? Well, the garrison, as you might have noticed, was about cities and economic zones. A sweep lets you take this action in any provinces or cities. So you can do this operation in multiple provinces and cities if you're taking a full operation. If you're doing a limited operation, once again, you have to choose 1 destination, province, or city where you're going to go and sweep. So basically to sweep, you can move any troop cubes, so not police. The police have to stay where they are for a sweep. Any number of troops can go into a destination space. And as usual, the cost is determined by the US alliance. You are going to pay 2 resources per destination space where you're sending your pieces to go do a sweep. So the details of sweeping. You can move any troop cubes, not police, into adjacent destination spaces. So if I want to come into La Habana and clear out this guerrilla from the 26th of July movement, I can send troops from Havana into La Habana as part of my sweep. So they're moving into an adjacent space, and they are troop cubes, not police cubes. Then in each destination space, if it's not a forest, so these forests are a little more challenging. If it's not a forest, you activate 1 guerrilla for each cube present, troop or police. So let's say I've moved into here. There's 2 of me. There's 1 guerrilla. Oh no, he's going to get activated. And that would be true even if there's only 1 cube here. In fact, if there had been 2 gorillas here, because this is not a forest, you reveal 1 gorilla per cube. So these would both suddenly be exposed. Oh no. However, if we'd gone into a forest, so let's say that we go in here and the gorillas are here instead. This is thicker terrain, so you can only activate 1 gorilla for each 2 cubes present. So if I have 2 cubes here, it only activates 1 gorilla in Pinar del Rio because it's forest and it's too thick here and I can't see everyone. But basically a sweep is going to let you move into other areas, expose these guerrilla fighters, and then get ready to attack them. So sweeping does not mean that you're attacking yet. In fact, you have to take a separate operation to do that, which we're about to discuss. But just to sum up, sweeping lets you enter adjacent locations to you with troops and then reveal any guerrillas that are there at a ratio of 1 cube to 1 gorilla, unless you're in a forest, in which case it takes 2 cubes to activate 1 gorilla, and you round down. And then our last operation as the government is assault. So all that sweeping that you might have been doing, well, now it's time to do something about it. You are definitely going to want to eliminate enemy forces throughout this game, and to do that, you're going to perform an assault. And an assault can be done in any space where you've got somebody to fight. Once again, you do have to pay for it. So it's going to be 2 resources right now, at least. It could be up to 4 later, per space where you want to perform an assault. If you're doing a limited operation, then you can only do it in 1. But you assault anywhere to eliminate enemy forces as long as you are paying for it. And the way that this works is for each space, you can remove 1 active guerrilla or base according to the calculations I'm about to give you. So there's also something special to note about bases. Let's say that we have, swept some cubes here, and we want to get in a fight here in Sierra Maestra. And let's say that we swept, so these guerrillas got revealed. Now we are able to assault them, but we can't take out their base first. We can only take out the base after we take out the guerrilla fighters. And the other thing is how many pieces you can remove is dependent on the terrain that you're in. So for each space, you can remove 1 active guerrilla or base if everything else is gone from that faction, according to the following calculation. So if we're in the mountains, so this is the mountains, you can remove 1 enemy piece for every 2 troops. So this is actually not the best attack setup because I only have 2 troops here, and they can only remove 1 of these guerrillas because it's a mountain. It's just tough to get at everybody out there. Too many places to hide. And it's rounded down. So even if there were 3 troops, you'd still only get rid of 1 of these guerrillas. If there were 4 troops here, we get rid of both of these guerrillas, but we couldn't get rid of the base. However, if we decide to assault again in the near future before the 26th of July can rebuild, this base is vulnerable to the next assault that happens here. So basically, if it's a mountain, it's 1 enemy piece gone for every 2 troops. If you're not a mountain, so forests or grasslands, then it's 1 to 1. So 1 enemy piece for every 1 troop. So if we're here, things have suddenly changed. If we assault here, then these 2 guys will take out both of these guerrillas. If you're performing an assault in a city or in an EC, then your odds of success go up because it's not just troops that count there, it's troops and police who contribute towards the soldier count in an assault in a city or an EC. So if we wanted to go for this guerrilla here and he was activated, he would be donezo. He's way outnumbered here. And then the other thing to know is seizure. So let's say that if one of these guerrillas has a cache marker, if you can activate and destroy that guerrilla, you also get the cash that they're holding. So we're going to talk a bit more about cash in the Syndicate video, but just so you know, one of the ways to steal cash from somebody is to assault the space where they are, kill that piece, and take that cash. So those are the main operations that you can do as the government. And so this is what you're going to want to check the rulebook and the player aids for, is just the details on exactly who does what where. It'll take a little bit to get the calculations exactly right. So there's no shame in just constantly checking for that whenever you're doing these actions. But if you know what the operations are basically designed to do, then you're going to know what to do and be able to figure out where to do it. The government also has 3 special activities where if they're performing an operation with special activity, they can add that on. So the first special activity that you can do is called transport, and this can accompany any operation you do. Why would you transport troops? Well, you're going to move them to prepare for the next operation. Maybe you need to get positioned to do a sweep and then an assault. And if you want to know where you can do it, well, it's basically to any one space. You can move up to 3 troops, not police, 3 troops from a city or from a base. So if you've got a province with a base in it, you can move troops from there to any one space. So you can take 3 troops from anywhere that's a city or that has a base, and then you can put them in any one other space on the map. So transport isn't going to move a whole lot of people, but it is going to help you plug up a bit of a coverage hole in an emergency. And again, special activities are free. So it's basically a free movement of a bunch of troops to a place where you're going to need them. It's pretty cool. The next special activity is called Airstrike. Airstrikes are interesting because you're going to lose them if you become embargoed, if your alliance with the United States degrades too much. So you definitely want to take advantage of those airstrikes while you still can. Because why would you use an airstrike? You can do it to destroy any exposed insurgent unit. So it's a way to guarantee get rid of, for example, an exposed guerrilla wherever you are without having to do an assault operation. So where can you do it? You can do it in any province or in any economic center. You cannot do an airstrike in a city that is too dangerous. And the limitation on airstrikes is that you can only do an airstrike as a special activity if the operation that you performed was a garrison, a sweep, or an assault. So if you train, you cannot do an airstrike. But if you do any of your other operations, you can. And basically an airstrike literally lets you remove any one active guerrilla or base. You do have to save the base for last from that faction. So you have to remove a faction's guerrillas before you can remove their base, but you can remove any one active thing. So airstrike is great because it's what you go for. If you just want something removed anywhere for free, use it while you can, because again, it's not there forever. And then the last special activity for the government is called reprisal. You do it because you want to reduce opposition and you want to push guerrillas out of an area where you're doing it. So where can you perform reprisal? You can do it in one controlled space where people oppose you. So those don't exist on the board right now, but let's say that we just kind of pushed in and we are here in Sierra Maestra and we have got control of this space because we have more pieces than the opposition has. Now we control Sierra Maestra, so we can put our control marker here. But the people here still don't like us very much. And so maybe we want to do a reprisal to do something about that. So this is now one controlled space where the people oppose us. And this again can only accompany garrison, sweep, or assault operations. So you can't do it when you train, but you can do it when you're doing any of the other operations that are available. So if we want to do a reprisal here, unfortunately, it involves doing terrorism. So we're going to add a terror marker to the space selected. We are intimidating these people into liking us. And then you shift the opposition one level towards neutral. So we can go from active to passive opposition here. And then we also have the option to relocate any one guerrilla here to any adjacent space. So we know that we're kind of pushing them out. And so those are the government actions in a game of Cuba Libre. You can get more forces. You can convert some of your cubes to bases, which you're absolutely going to want to do. You can move your soldiers around. You can sweep them through different areas to expose guerrillas there, and then you can assault those guerrillas and get them out of the way. Then your special activities are meant to support that because they let you transport, which is just move different pieces to emergency areas. Airstrike, so just remove anybody that you want to remove, or perform a reprisal, which lets you reduce opposition in an area, unfortunately via terrorism that is accounted for in this game, but it also lets you displace guerrillas to other areas. Note though that there are consequences to things like that, because by pushing this guerrilla here, they're the only 26th of July piece. This is now a 26th of July controlled area. So you can create your own problems and have to do something about it too. So those are the different government actions. Hopefully this was a helpful video if you're going to be playing the government soon. You can do that with more comfort. Be on the lookout for more videos about the other factions shortly. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and most of all, happy gaming.